Welcome to the FSH Society's inaugural episode of our webinar series, Fundraising Masterclasses. These webinars feature volunteer event organizers who have accrued a lot of experience and success in advocating and fundraising for FSHG. These are an opportunity to share best practices and lessons learned. I want to welcome our online audience today. I hope you'll get lots of great ideas and inspiration. I want to also mention a few housekeeping tips. I'm not going to mute the audience so that you can ask questions during the presentation, but if you're in a place with a lot of background noise, please use the mute. Also, your phones tend to pick up your breath and amplify the sound, so if you're prone to heavy breathing, you might want to use the mute as well. There's a chat window where you can submit questions as well, and I'll be monitoring that during the program. So, I am delighted to introduce today's fundraising master, Terry Colella. Terry founded the Friends of FSH Research based in Seattle, and for the past 10 years she has overseen an auction event that has become extremely successful. I'm delighted that she can be here today to share her story. So welcome, Terry.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, Terry.
Well, first of all, I'd like to kind of step away from being a master at this. We do have experience doing it for 10 years, but I certainly don't consider myself a master in fundraising. So feel free to ask questions, and every year I learn something new. So anyway, for the first slide, my ideas were when you start thinking of what you're going to do as a fundraiser, consider before you jump into doing like an auction or a big dinner auction event, just consider what resources you have available, what kind of things your community seems to do well at or be a part of, and then look at what kind of budget might be required. We live in Kirkland, which is outside Seattle, and Seattle's a huge, very popular to do auctions. And when I first decided to do a fundraising event, I kind of considered that. We live near a university, so I knew I had some resources, and just decided that an auction and a dinner was kind of the thing that was done here in Seattle very successfully, and I thought I could probably do it if I tried. So I decided to do it. Anyway, Brian came up with, the very first year we did an auction, we did it in collaboration with my son, who was about to be a senior in high school, and he needed to do a senior project. So he worked with me on putting together the very first auction, and he was the one that came up with the Fishing for a Cure as our motto that year, and we've stuck with that as well. So you might want to think of a motto or a theme or whatever for your event as well. So that's what we did our very first year. That's how we got started, and that's how we first got our audience started to be built, with the high school and students and stuff, and then went on from there. So I guess, anybody need a question yet, or should I just keep talking?
You can keep going.
Okay. So when you're trying to first think of what you're going to do, think of how big you think it's going to be, what kind of space you're going to need. So for us, I live in Kirkland, and Bellevue is about the closest place that has decent-sized hotels. And I didn't want to drive across the bridge to go to Seattle for an event, so I wanted something that was close to my home, or as close as possible. When we do this auction, we store all of the items that we collect during the year at my house, and then we have to transport all of it to the location, so being close by was really important. So we had to pick a place that had an auditorium big enough for the amount of people I thought we were going to have, make sure it's handicap accessible, that there's easy parking. Most of the parking in Seattle costs something, so that's always a drawback, but we picked the Bellevue Hyatt, which has free parking, and that was one of the reasons I picked it. It's already a well-decorated, nicely furnished hotel, so it decreases my cost on decorating something. If you take rent a facility, you may have different kind of decorating costs, so I wanted to keep that minimal. And then, of course, the cost of the place. No place comes free unless you've got a great connection. But for me, it wasn't going to be free, so I had to look at how much it was going to cost, negotiate that contract. We have people that come from out of town, so being at a hotel is very handy because a lot of people just stay there. And then any kind of storage area, because after the event there's a lot of stuff that needs to come home. And so those are all things that I kind of thought about when I was looking at where I was going to have my event. So those are some of the things you'd want to look at.
Any
Jerry,
questions about location?
is your event the only one in the Northwest?
Yes. Yeah. You mean for FSH?
Yes.
Yes. We are, we're an independent organization, and we started in Kirkland, totally independent. We have our own tax identification number, et cetera. And yeah, we are the only event and the only group here.
I asked the question because in the Boston area we've had a couple of ongoing events that have been relatively successful, and they've grown each year. But the overall return on the investment, if you will, was relatively small compared to what you've been able to accomplish in your event in Seattle. I'm wondering if perhaps the focus should be on one event rather than several in a given location.
I guess it all depends on your attendees, what price range they're looking for, and the cost of your venue.
Also, Terry, this is Amy Becker here. You built this up over 10 years. It takes a lot of time to cultivate this. So give us an idea, if you will, for the first, say, 2-3 years, how much did you wind up fundraising and bringing in at that point before you built it to the success that it is?
Well, it's kind of an odd, it's a kind of a funny thing. We've made almost the exact same amount of money every single year.
Really?
The very first year. We probably made $170,000 or so the very first year. We had 375 guests. The next year it fell down to about 260, but we still made the same number of people, same amount of money. And that has been over the number of years, we've pretty much raised about the same ballpark figure, 150 to 190. This year was our best year, 196,000.
Excellent. Congratulations.
So it kind of, you would think it would grow. The very first year we had a huge turnout, and that was because we were affiliated with the school. We got a lot of my sons, the support of the school community, and like I said, we had 375 people. And we thought the next year there was just no way we would be able to have more people than that. And we thought, people all loved the first event. We thought we'll have no trouble filling the room again. That was not the case. So one thing we did learn for our second one, and every year you have to approach it like it's the first time you're doing it. You have to set advertising just the same like you would the very first time. Don't ever count that people, because they love the one, are going to come back the next year.
And I suppose the people who return year after year are the ones who are the hardcore, who really intend on spending anyway.
Pretty much, yeah. But, the first year kind of threw us off. We just thought my gosh, everybody walked away just saying what a great event it was, how, they'll come every year, all this other stuff. And, and so we kind of backed off on the promotion side of it and kept putting together the auction and kind of forgot the other part. Uh-huh. And then we were having to give away free seats in order to get people to be there. We still made about the same amount of money, which was ironic, but it was a lot more stressful because we just didn't have people calling in wanting to reserve spots. So every year you have to advertise and push for it just like you did the first time around. Don't ever lull yourself into a feeling like everybody's just going to come because it's such a fun event. You've got to just work on that every year. So anyway, we've always used this odd date at the very end of January. It's the last weekend of January. It works for us, although every year we always think, wouldn't it be nicer if we could all be wearing lightweight dresses and no coats and have it in the summer? And then we always go back to the same reasons we don't. The majority of giving happens between Thanksgiving and December. That's when most people give their tax-deductible donations. So you hit businesses when they're doing a lot of their donations. We just seem to get a lot of donations during that period of time. So it's a great time to have your event in January for us. The venue is cheaper because we're not competing with all the brides in June. A lot of schools have their school auctions in March and April, and so the competition for space is a lot less in January. So January always tends to be a good time for us. So if you're planning an event, look at what other conflicts you're going to have in your neighborhood, your community, when the school holidays are, because if school holidays are going on at the same time as your event, you're losing some of your families on vacations. So that's some of the things I think about when I look at my timing. Personnel, you need lots of people.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
We don't have tons of people. I think a lot of people feel like we've got, they'll call us and say, I'd like to talk to your reservation department, or can I talk to your, your advertising, your procurement people, or whatever. And usually, it's really Rick and I, my husband and I, who do the majority of the procurement throughout the year. We have a very small board, which is really just my friends that help feed off ideas and help us figure out what our theme is going to be, what our colors are going to be. But most people aren't real hot on doing procurement. So during the year, that's us that does it. You need to have a lot of volunteers the night of. You need people to help you open the boxes, put out the stuff, arrange things, greet your guests. You need lots of volunteers the day of and to clean up afterwards. We do an auction, so we have to hire an auctioneer. And there's a little picture right there of the one we've been using the last few years, David Silverman. We've had other ones also, and I've always believed that my auctioneer is part of my entertainment for the night. So you don't want to have people see the same person over and over and over. But it's hard to switch if you like somebody. So like this next year, I might have the same auctioneer, but I'm definitely finding a new MC because that's part of it's part of your entertainment. We usually have musicians. We have access to a jazz musician professor at the university, and he brings some of his students, and they provide some of the music for during our silent auction. We have background jazz music going on. You're going to need to consider how you're going to do your banking. You've got to put together receipts. All the purchases that night have to be processed that night. So you need computers and somebody that processes all that stuff and get that all done while people are eating dinner, so that when they're doing dinner, they come out and they get their stuff they bought and they get a receipt telling them how much they spent. So you need a whole group of people doing that, and we hire that. We don't rely on volunteers to do that. And you just need lots of volunteers. So you got.
Where do you find people to hire? Do you just?
The first, backing up quite a bit. When I started, I had never hardly even been to an auction before. I had helped out at a school auction. I never, I was a professional nurse. I wasn't at all involved in fundraising at the school. I did some stuff, but I also worked. So the very first 2 years, I hired a person to help me. She helped train us how to do things, how to run things. She actually was a hired person at the auction the night of, made sure everything flowed, all the direction of everything. And she also did the banking thing with her staff. Then I paid her like the second year to be like more of a consultant to me, so we would kind of be trained to take it over. And by the third year, my husband and I were in charge of it. I also made friends with some people who ran auctions at other places and learned from them. I went and worked at their events. I picked their brains for things. And then eventually I found this group that does it's a private little company run from their home who does event banking. And I've used her and her group for the last few years. So I think one of your best things if you're going to do something like that is start picking the brains of other people that do stuff like this. Start attending auctions yourself. Learn all you can about what you like, what you don't like. Volunteer at other people's events so you can see, what you need and what you want to do. My goal has always been, since we have such a uncommon, unknown condition, we're not going to have a lot of people just come because of FSH. They might come because they were asked by a friend to come. They might come because they know my family. They might come because, some other reason, but not because they saw an advertisement about it. Nobody's just going to come off the streets unless somehow they got connected. So my goal was always to put on kind of the Nordstrom style of auction, the best possible auction I could do, so that if people didn't care about our condition, or I couldn't sway them once they got there to be really a big supporter for FSH, I wanted them to go away thinking it was the most fun they've ever been to, it was the best food, it was the best event, so that they might come back. So all of this, you try to make it just such a top-level event so that people get tied in whether they want to or not, you hope. So that's why you try to, put on the music, you get the entertainment, you try to make everything as good. We have tastings for our meals a couple weeks ahead of time, and we pick that meal apart so nobody feels it's just a banquet dinner. It's a gourmet dinner that they've come for. We hand-pick the wine we have. We make sure that it's really the best meal they can possibly get and the nicest event. And you hope people talk about it and want to come back and they want to bring their friends.
That's great. Can I ask a question about the budget, because that becomes expensive? So how much of the cost, that basic cost, do you expect to cover through your ticket sales, and then, or is that a bit of a loss leader, and then you're expecting to make it up and more, make your net on this through the auction itself? How do you think about that?
Well, I think one of the slides you have our budget. You're going to need to make a budget. I think one of the slides comes up with a budget. Okay. But just off the top of my head, it costs roughly about $50,000 to put on our event. That's the food, that's the location, that pays for the auctioneer, pays for the audiovisual team, etc. I have one corporate sponsor that gives us $25,000 every year. That pretty much pays for half of my costs. And then the tickets pretty much pay for the rest of it, so that by the night of, everything we make, everything we sell, everything that's done at the event itself, all of that money, I can assure our guests, is all going to research. Because it's already been paid by the ticket price that they came in at and my corporate sponsors ahead of time.
Right. That's great.
I'd like to, I don't know if you have it in here or you're intending on talking about it, but what I would like to hear a little more about is how you go about obtaining corporate sponsors.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not good at that. I've tried a lot, and it's a goal of mine to do more. The corporate sponsor we have is because a friend of my husband's husband works somewhere. And because it was a friend of a friend, he took on our cause. He advocated to the corporation about our cause, and that particular corporation, they come every year. They've increased their level of support every year, and they've they've bought into it. They've watched our videos. They've seen the people. They've learned about me, and he is a huge supporter of us now. He is totally a supporter of FSH and what we're doing, and I've been very successful keeping them.
They're taking a nap now, and she'll call later.
Oh, sorry.
So
okay.
The other corporations, I had one of my banks just for a couple $1,000 2 different years, and the reason they even did it was because we have all our mortgages with them, etc. I went to our personal insurance company. They supported it 1 year, but I haven't been able to keep those coming. The best thing for that's a hard one, and the best thing is knowing people, asking people, going to the people you go to first, like considering your insurance company. Other services that you use all the time. So it's kind of like you help them, you support them, maybe they'll support your cause back. Otherwise, talking to family, friends who have run businesses, or a friend of a friend who knows somebody in a big corporation. That's one of my bigger challenges. I don't have very many corporate supporters.
Can I ask about volunteers? Is that also through friends, or are there any community organizations that you go to that you've had success with, like the Junior League or that kind of?
Again, our auction is very personal. A lot of the volunteers are my personal friends, and that's how we started in the beginning. In the very beginning, some of the kids at the school volunteered. Every year I probably get some teenagers to help because they all need to get community service hours. But you just got to ask your friends. And the friends that don't sit at the tables might have a friend, they might not want to pay to come, but they could help that way. 1 year we had, before the University of Washington quit their swimming program, we had 1 year had their swim team come, and those college students all volunteered. And that was they did a great job. A team is a great thing to have, like a college team or fraternity group, somebody that already knows each other. That's kind of a nice way to go. The last few years, my husband's a swimmer, and he's a part of a master swim team. And a whole bunch of them come at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning of our event, move all the boxes out to where they need to be located and start unpacking for us. And then later, mostly my friends who are volunteers come and make the items all look really pretty. So those are some volunteers we've had. Now, I just got an email recently from GoDaddy organization. You might be familiar with those people. They just located a business here in Kirkland, and they are looking for volunteer opportunities. Well, I'm planning to have them work on our auction next year. So that's a new source of volunteers for me.
That's great.
Again, you've really got to just open up your friendship circles, ask friends of friends. You do ask a lot of people for help when you do a thing like this. Great. So when we go soliciting auction items, we go to a lot of art fairs. And again, it's my husband and I, and we introduce ourselves to the artists, tell them what we're doing, and ask if they'd be interested in donating one of their items. We get a lot of no's, but we also get a lot of yeses. And it's one of the parts of my auction that I hate the most. I'm not a good solicitor, but if I don't ask for it, I won't get it. So we go and we ask, and you're giving, I've gotten some great responses. I mean, over the years, we go to the same art fairs and we see a lot of the same artists, and they ask about Brian, they ask us how we did, how the auction went, and so they're really connected. A lot of them are real connected and care about what's going on. And so you're giving them an opportunity to play a role in groundbreaking research and making a difference. So you got to kind of psych yourself up before you go asking, because it is hard to ask. But we go ask our friends. Friends have donated, like their cabins, condos, things like that for our auction. We have one of my good friends is a good cook, so she's put on dinners, and people will pay for that. And then you just go to all the restaurants and stores and wineries and ask for bottles of wine. And there's a lot of companies online that have procurement opportunities online, so you just write a lot of letters. I spend hours writing letters and filling out forms. And
do you find that to be productive?
Well, like Disneyland, I wouldn't get that without going online doing it. And I get their hopper passes by going online to do it. The most productive is going face-to-face. That's also the most time consuming, but that is where you're going to get the most yeses. Emails are pretty much, a lot of people go for emails too. I'm finding over the last 10 years here that emails are more and more discounted because there's so many emails that people have in their inboxes. Phone calls are probably, again, real time consuming, but maybe something we got to do more of. But every contact is worth trying. So if you can make a good letter and get it to the right hands, I've gotten responses that way.
Right.
You pretty much just think of every stone you can and don't ignore it. You try to uncover every stone possibly, and every avenue and every friend. And I think I probably lost a few friends in the process because they look at me and it's like I'm always looking for something for my auction. I've also made a whole lot of new ones, so it's kind of a trade-off.
So for restaurant gift cards, and I noticed you had a lot of them at your event. Do you ask on the spot when you're you're out eating at that restaurant and your friends ask, or do you? I've done that, and often I refer to a number, call the manager the next day. But,
yeah, I do all of them. The best time is when you're eating there and when you're paying your bill and you say, this is such a great restaurant. I would love to have this in our auction, and you tell them about it. You tell them it's going to be in the live part of the event, and you would love them to donate. Sometimes you get the right person who says definitely, and they give it to you right on the spot. And other ones are a lot more work. So a lot of them, I can't go to eat at every restaurant. You saw how many we had and how many hotels we had. Obviously, we don't eat all those places.
Right.
We do just go, walking into them and ask them. We tell them about what we're doing. And, again, in Seattle, it's pretty much of a common thing doing auctions, so none of them are surprised by it. And it is part of their advertising budget, and a lot of people just want to do it too. So anyway, you're going to need to get a procurement form if you're going to go out and get donations, because you've got to, give them some kind of receipt at the time and an ability to do for their charity donations. Or you have to have an EIN number or something that proves that you're a charity. I think the next page might show our procurement form. June, is that procurement form the next page there? So we've used this kind of form every single year. This is one from the third one we had in 2007. So you can see our tax ID number is on the bottom. We started with a 3-part form. I'm not sure why we ever did that. It seemed like there was more forms than I needed. We always do one, give the person one copy, and then we keep one copy for our office tracking of the item. And so you want to have some kind of receipt for them. Also, when we get home, within about 24 to 48 hours is our goal. We write them an official thank you letter that states what they donated, and again, for their tax records, but a nicer thank you letter. So the words thank you seem real small, but you can't do it enough. You have to keep thanking people and recognizing them over and over and over, and never take a donation and wait months before you thank the person for it. So we've tried to do within 24 to 48 hours, thank everybody for their donations. Mm-hmm. We put together a pamphlet, a brochure that talks about what FSH is and where the money's going, and it gives you some talking points. For a long time I had Brian's picture on it, and they would ask about Brian and stuff. I've kind of trying to make him not be, he needs to live his own life and not be my poster boy. And he hasn't objected to it, but I feel I don't need to have his picture on it anymore. So I've made a new one more that talks more about our organization and what we've accomplished and the research we've done. And I don't know, June, do you have that picture in there?
Let's see,
It was one of the ones I sent you just the other day. But anyway, we have a brochure we send out, or that we hand to the person, and so that they know that I'm an official organization. This is a real bad copy of the lighting and stuff. But anyway, it tells them a little bit about our organization, how long. This one was the one we just did for our 10-year, which we just finished. And you put out a save the date on that, always telling them people what the date is, and so you have literature and a receipt to give them for any procurement. Any questions, or we can go on to the next slide, I think.
Okay, I'm trying to get there. There we go.
Anyway, this is how we market it. You develop a logo. This logo, actually, to the left there, was our very original one. A friend of Brian, she was a senior in his class, did it for us. And, just a high school student did that for us. And we've kind of shortened our name. We're legally Pacific Northwest Friends of FSH Research, but we're also known as Friends of FSH Research. It's shorter, it's easier for check writing, and it's just easier. Go back one more time. Just want to make sure I said everything off of that one.
Let's see.
Okay, so that was just all the various ways you want to market, as many ways as you can. We have a website. I send out a newsletter once in a while, not very often, and I have a Facebook page. I've tried to do Twitter. I really can't get into Twitter, so I haven't done much of that. And I used to have a blog, but I don't keep that up either.
One thing I liked about when you posted images of auction items for people to preview, you had them on a Pinterest page, and that looked really nice.
Yeah, I used to do a web album, and the Pinterest is 100% better, and I started doing that last year, and I think it's a much better way to go. And again, that's another thing I tell, like the artists when they donate something, or a business when I say, I'm going to put this up on my Pinterest page right away. It'll have a link to your website, and so that I hopefully, it's the one thing I can give back to them too, is as soon as they give me a donation, so the earlier I get it, the more time they have on my Pinterest page. And then I put that link on every email I send, and I put it on Facebook all the time so that people can always be browsing at the things I've got there. And so it's a way to advertise those businesses, those artists, and hopefully generate interest about our event. So I guess that's under my social media is Pinterest as well.
Yeah. Are there any questions? All right, go on. You want to go on to the budget?
Yeah, move on.
Okay. Are you seeing the budget slide?
No, I don't see anything yet. I just see marketing still.
Oh, that's strange. Okay. What about now? Yep.
I've got it up.
Oh, I just see marketing. I wonder what. Maybe I need to refresh my screen?
Maybe. Let me.
Oh, it says budget now. Okay.
Okay.
So we've kind of talked about most of these things already. When you're planning something like that, the cost of the facility, my banking services, that's about $2,000 for them to do my banking stuff. The auctioneer has been a pretty decent deal. I can't remember. I think it was $3,000 this last year. Credit card fees. You've got to figure out. You've got to be able to accept credit cards if you're going to do much of an event. People want credit cards. So shop around to find a service that doesn't take too many fees out because they are all different. Some come on with a certain price that they'll give you, and then you find out when you've run it all that, well, that only applied to the things that don't have like reward cards or some of these other cards. They don't get, they charge you a lot more to run one of those. So you've got to look around a bit. I've gone to various different ones. This last year I changed to another one. And when we figure out our taxes, I'll see if we did any better this year than we did in the past. I don't know yet if it was a better deal or not. Invitation printing was on there. I guess here you see various things that we have to put on our budget, things we have to consider. The costs are the bottom part and all the things coming in at the top. And I took away the numbers so you don't get confused with our numbers. But anyway, those are some of the costs you have to think of. You've got to be mailing. You've got to print out your invitations. You've got to design your invitations, save the date cards. Cost of, like when you do a corporate sponsorship, usually there's you try to give them something in return. We give them a free table at the event. Reservations, there's different levels of reservation tickets costs. Some people are willing to come in at a higher level, and you thank them for that with some kind of gift. But, does anybody have a question about the budget or what kind of things that you have to consider when you're putting on something like this?
Yes, this is Michelle. I have a question about the banking side of it. And Terry, you have your own sort of organization set up, it sounds like, so you don't go through the FSH Society, is that correct?
Correct. We are totally an independent organization. I established ourselves in 2004. We are totally independent.
Okay. So therefore, with our events, I was just wondering about for example, the credit card fees. Is that something that is avoided through the society being a 501? Is that?
Well, I can speak about that. So when volunteers organize an event for the FSH Society, and we do all the financial processing. So we have selected a credit card vendor. We obviously looked at a lot of them to try to find the most advantageous from a fee perspective. So you don't have to worry about any of that, and that just becomes part of our operating expense, I guess.
But every time you take a credit card, like when you go to the store and you pay with a credit card, your $10 item you're paying with your credit card, the business doesn't get $10. They're going to get $10 minus whatever fees are associated with running it on a credit card. That's why most businesses love it when you just pay in cash. But every time you run a credit card or use a credit card, there's fees associated with it.
Yeah.
So we all lose money, business side, we all lose money having people do credit cards. But on the flip side, people spend a lot more money if you take credit cards. So you've got to take credit cards. And so we do, and it's just a cost of doing business.
Yeah. And actually, Terry, one thing that you did at your event, which I thought was, really terrific, is that when people, everybody pre-registered, I guess. People bought tickets ahead of time. So when they arrived, you had their names, you had them assigned to a table, you had an auction number, a unique number assigned to each person, and the staff at the registration took your credit card imprint on the spot.
Right.
So when you're bidding, they just keep track of the number. They don't have to say, oh, that was Jane Doe and that was, you know, Michael Fox or whatever. They just track the numbers and they can figure out who you are. They already have your credit card information. So during dinner, you have the staff behind the scenes figuring out how much, you know, you've purchased over the evening, and the checkout process was smooth. That was beautiful because I've been at auctions where there's a huge mass of people trying to check out at the end, and information getting misplaced, and people scrawling their names, and later you're going like, I can't read this person's name, and so that was really well managed. That's an incredibly valuable.
Well, there are some work things behind the scenes on that, because those bankers that we have, they don't actually run any of those transactions, because I haven't paid for internet at the facility. We don't have the ability to swipe and hold your credit card information and then change it at the end of the night. So what I do is they swipe all the cards when people come in and make sure we've got all their credit card information. And then in the week after the event, I hand enter every credit card and the cost and run all those credit card bills.
Right.
Doesn't that raise your fees?
What?
Doesn't that raise your fee?
To hand enter them, yeah, it's a little bit more expensive that way, but then on the flip side, I don't pay for the terminal. I don't pay for internet at the auction, which is about $1,000 additional.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
You can't really swipe a card and hold the content until the end of the night. And at an auction, at least in our area, nobody wants to come at the end of the night and swipe their card. They want to do it at the beginning, get done, pick up their stuff, and leave at the night. So the only way we could run credit cards electronically is if I paid for internet or had like Square. I could use Square. But people would have to, at the end of the night, stand in line and pay for their items. And most people don't want to do that. So we do it this other way as a convenience to all of our guests.
Luckily, excuse me, Terry, but for the people that are affiliated with the FSH Society, luckily we have terminals, and we use wireless terminals, and we also have the smartphone appliance that you connect to your smartphone. Right. So we're lucky we have that. So that just makes it just a lot easier for people to pay for things.
Yeah, that would be we've looked at that, but it hasn't worked for us at this point.
Yeah. Well, I will say that I don't think with the swiping that you can just hold it without a charge.
No, none of them will let you hold it. So you have to do it at the end of the night.
Right. So what Terry does when she says she's swiping, it's actually the imprint, the physical, the little slip of paper, and you run it. You've got the number. And then I think that card is filed with each guest's name.
Right, and their bid number, and they've all signed, to authorize us using it.
Yeah.
That way, after it's all done, we get all the paperwork, and we know exactly how much they spent that night, and those are processed, again, hopefully within, this time it took about 3 days, I think, to get them all finished. But people get automatically an email receipt when I run them. So they get those after the event a couple days later.
You don't find that people object to giving you their credit card without knowing at that moment what's going on the card? Because down here in San Diego, there's no way you're going to get people to give you their card information.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, the people that are coming have signed up to come to our event. They know it's a fundraising event. We have all their contact information, and they've done the buying at the event, so they know what they're going to have on there.
It's kind of a standard practice at auctions.
What they're spending. They've already purchased. They know what they've purchased.
I think it's a trust issue. I mean, people know you. They've been coming. They know that this is being done because they know how inefficient and crazy it gets at the end if they don't do that. And it's voluntary. I mean, if somebody really doesn't want to do it, I suppose they can just
they don't. Not everybody does. Some people come at the very end and write a check or give cash. And that's totally their choice. But we always allow credit cards if they want to do that. So it works for us.
Oh, before I advance it, are there any other questions pertaining to the budget? Okay, we'll go on to timeline because you're all thinking, how long does it all take?
So this is just a sample of kind of an estimate about, you need to be thinking of it, pretty much I start thinking about it as soon as our auction is over, really. Thinking about where I'm going to have it again. But basically somewhere about 8 months out, you need to start thinking what you're going to do, your logo, get your forms printed and made, and start thinking of how you're going to approach things. If you're lucky, you can have a chairman be on your committee or whatever. It would be me in this case. Start scheduling events. We plan meetings and have my board come, and we meet about every month, and then a little more frequently as we get closer to the event. You start procuring. We usually start procuring in the summer for our event in January. Again, we start writing letters, thanking everybody, planning your theme, try to figure out what our colors are going to be, and make sure if you're going to get an auctioneer, you hire them before they get hired somewhere else. Start looking at your invitation list. You got to put out a save the date mailer at some point, so you want to start designing that in your theme so that people kind of hold the date. We mail those out about 4 months in advance and then start designing the invitations. You got to always have a backup plan for weather outages, things like that, problems that your invitations don't get done in time. We had one year where they were coming up from Portland and there was a horrible weather thing, so we got them off late, but the earlier you get your invitations designed and done, the better. So it's one less thing to worry about. Then that's about 4 months out. Then 3 months out would be your next page. This is some of the save the date card we had a couple years ago, and kind of a couple different designs. So you've got to get those designed and printed. Prepare your mailing list. Make sure you get all your mailing lists checked over. It costs something to have all those mailing lists checked because the post department, when you do bulk mailing, needs to have them all checked, so there's a cost there. If you need a banquet license, you need to make sure you get that. Some areas need it. It was $60 here. If you're going to do any gambling or have a raffle in the state of Washington, you need to have a gambling license. And depending on how much you are hoping to make on your gambling, it goes up in increments as to how expensive that is. And we try to make $10,000 on our golden raffle ticket. And then we have another raffle recently that we've added. So we need to have a gambling license to cover that, and that's about $360 here in Washington. So you've got to make sure you've got all your, kind of bugs, all your ducks in a row, and make sure you've got all your licenses and all that sort of stuff. There's also a thing you can have, reseller's license, so that you don't have to pay tax on certain things that you purchase or that you have to pay for at the event itself. So you want to make sure you have a reseller's license as well. So you've got to get that. And I have that every year. I make sure I have that because sometimes I buy things for our auction. And you don't want to be having to pay tax if it's just going to go through your auction and sold again on the other side. So we have an auction program, which we never really have talked about in this, but you're going to need some kind of software to track all this. And we have an auction program that every single item is tracked, every donation is tracked, every donor is tracked, and make sure you have all your stuff ready so that you can prepare a catalog. And then you have to print out a catalog, and blah, blah, blah. All the rest of the stuff you got to get ready. You got to have big cards made and get ready for your event and have a great time, and again say thank you to everybody 1,000,000 times on the process. Any questions about this? It's kind of self-explanatory, I imagine, depending on what you're planning to do.
Do you ever use consignment items?
I do a few, not too often. For example, Holland America Cruise Line will sell you a charity rate cruise. It's the same cruise you would take, but they will sell it to a charity. And it cost me $1,000. It's for 2 people, and its value is like $3,200, you know, if you have to pay the top price. So that's a consigned item. Every once in a while, there'll be something else that we'll consign. This year, somebody donated their condo in Hawaii to us, and they asked for us to pay the $1,000 maintenance fees. I guess they have $1,000 worth of maintenance fees for the year or something. So we took a gamble and did that, and we sold it for a little over $3,000. So we made $2,000 on that consigned item.
Like I know we have a company here in Atlanta that does it. They do a lot of like gold albums and things like that.
Yeah, we haven't found we need them that way. A couple of years in the very beginning, we did some of those African cruises, or not, safari cruise things, or whatever those are, the African safari programs. And there was a co-payment on that too, and you could sell a bunch of them. And but if I get enough donations where it's no catch like that, I'd rather have somebody's. I'd rather do those if I can. And we've turned out the last few years we've got enough live items. I don't need to buy live items. So we last year we had a connection with the people at Heart, Ann and Nancy Wilson, and I could go pay somebody to buy one of those autographed guitars, but we got one free from her. So I mean, you kind of go at all your connections if you can. So I'd rather do that than any consignment. But if you don't have enough good stuff, then that consignment option is always out there. There's quite a few companies that do those. And that can kind of fill out your live auction if you don't have enough good stuff. We decided to use name tags the last couple of years. We kind of talked about it, and some people thought it was a bad idea, like going to school or something. Everybody seems to like it, and nobody objects to it. And it's just so easy when there's so many people there. Some of them see each other once a year, and it's then. But it's hard to remember, what's her first name? Well, there you go. So we're doing this. We save them at the end of the night. We make everybody drop their lanyard in a bin, and we put in a new name tag the next year. So.
And the bid card is waiting for you at your table, so you don't lose it during the silent auction. You don't leave it someplace, not at the bar or something. So. Yeah,
but if you're walking around, you can always refer to your name tag if you forget what your bid number was, so that you can bid on everything around, and you know that you're at table number 31. So we try to put as much information on that. This is a page out of our catalog, so there's all the rules in the catalog. The first couple pages about, if you bid on something, it's considered a contract. You can't go back and cross it off or say, that's, whatever. You're considered to be kind of making a contract. You're planning to buy it. So all the details in here about the auction. Each item has a bid number and a bid sheet here. It says briefly what it is, the values at the top, and then we have the first bid be 1/3 of the total value, and then it goes up in increments. And people can.
I like that you've prescribed the increments, so you don't have people nickel and diming and filling up a sheet with.
Definitely. Don't have them open-ended. It's amazing what I've seen people do on those. And it's so silly and almost insulting. They'll go up $1. It's like, are you kidding?
And I like that you have a buy it now price too.
Yeah. We always put usually the standard of thumb is you put the first bid at 30% of what the value is. And then the guaranteed price is 1.5 times what the value is. Now, if you're given, let's say you are given an item that, like a photograph that the photographer thinks is worth $1,000. Well, you know, very few people are going to pay that much for a photograph. So you can choose when you make your bid forms, you can change the starting bid number. You could also have the guaranteed price be $1,000 in that case, because it's unlikely it's going to get, anybody will pay guaranteed of $1,500, you know, like $1,500 for that picture. So you can change your bid steps, and that also helps make more bid steps. So people have more options of putting in, you know, participating in the bidding. So you can kind of play with that. We have all the things out. This is one of the events, not this last year's, but a previous one. And so you can see there's lots of people looking at the items. They're hopefully as attractively displayed as possible. Again, I'm going my Nordstrom's route of trying to make things really attractive, really pleasant to look at, and high-quality items that people want to bid on. Yeah. So you try to make it really attractive and, you know, a fun event.
Also, you had zones, so there were areas that closed out at times.
Right.
You had a live auctioneer announcing it, so it kind of built up excitement around even the silent auction part.
Right. There's 3 different silent auctions, and so each one will close, and then this will be the last one, and then everybody goes in the dining room, and that's where the live auction is, and usually a video or something, a presentation of some sort, and dinner.
Yeah, and I have to say the quality of what you had is, you could do so much gift shopping there, even if it wasn't for yourself. I tend not to buy a lot of stuff for myself. I bought a wedding present there, and it was that quality of, you know, and there was a range from, so that anybody could afford something. You know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
Very well presented.
We were very lucky. This is a couple of years back. We did a Caribbean theme, so you can see the gobos on the black screen in the background with the palm trees and stuff, and we worked with. Now back to the consignment question, you had one time all those bowls as centerpieces. We actually consigned from the artist with the condition that I could return any that did not sell. So we did that year. Centerpieces are one of my biggest problems. I really hate dealing with centerpieces. It's hard to find 32 items, because you got at least 32 tables, or we have sometimes more than that somebody's all going to want, and a price point that you're going to sell all of them. And then it's just a hassle to take them back or get rid of them or whatever. So I really hate the whole centerpiece thing, and we played with them various years. Some years I have throwaway ones that are just kind of something there. This year we had just a bottle that was decorated with some streamers coming out of them. Those were throwaways. But sometimes we've tried to. Sometimes we've sold all of them, and sometimes we haven't sold many. So it varies.
So Terry, I wanted to mention several things from the live auction that I thought were absolutely brilliant. Okay, so one is that the hotel, I don't know if they donated or whatever, but they had these trays of cocktails, 10 of a particular type of signature cocktail, enough for one table, and people were bidding to be able to buy this tray of cocktails for their table. So they were paying $300, $400. I mean, you're getting $40 per cocktail. It's pretty good. And there were a bunch of them during the night, so it became kind of a little break in the pace of the live auction. People paid a lot for it, and I'm told people tend to bid more generously when they have a little alcohol in them. So I thought that was
well, they're
really
treating their table, and also they get a fairly good tax donation by buying those, because the value of that tray itself was like $100 or so, about $10 a drink for 10 drinks.
Yeah.
They paid $400 for a table of drinks. Well, they got a $300 donation for their taxes for the following year.
And you got some really fun bidding wars, and it kind of kept the whole room excited and focused and having fun. So I thought that was brilliant. And another thing is you had a lot of restaurant gift cards. They're $25, $50, $75 gift cards, and had flash bidding on them, so they
go real
had to race. They went really fast, and you required that people bid the face value or more.
Right.
And that was great because I've seen so many auctions where people are like just lowballing these gift cards. They're out to get a bargain, and it's a shame. And you just said you got to pay face value, and people are racing to get their bid cards up before the other person. So
it's like otherwise if you put a gift card like in a basket or something, like you have a basket of Italian items, and you throw in a Italian restaurant gift card, it's almost like throwing away that money in there because they're not going to get your money back. Yeah. So we've learned not to do that, and we just sell them this way, and we get face value out of it, much more money out of it. Same with some of the hotels. You get much more money out of it doing it this way than just having it on a table.
And it goes really fast. I mean, you went through like 20 cards in like under 5 minutes. Boom, 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 and so that was terrific. And then can you talk about the Fund the Cure, like in the middle of the auction? That was amazing.
The Fund the Cure part?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the middle of, you have, we have like 30-some live auction items. And then midway through the middle, we take a pause because everybody is there for a reason, and we remind them of our reason. And we've had speakers before, but mainly we've had movies. And you can see our movie on our website, the one that was shown this last year. And this year, we had a video by people that have FSH. They submitted their own comments. You may know Ray and his wife. He sent in some comments and little mini videos. And it was all compiled together. And they watched that video, and then after that video, our auctioneer asked for donations. And we started up at first $10,000. Do you have anybody in the room that wants to donate $10,000 to fund FSH research? We didn't have anybody at that level, but at $5,000 we had, I think, 3. And then he keeps on stepping down to different levels, so that basically by the end of the night, everybody pretty much has donated whatever they can, whether it's $1,000, $250, $150, whatever. And at one level, at $100, we had a matching, so that every donation made at $100 level was going to be matched that night. And that we got 99 people to come up at $100 because of that match. It really helped boost that interest. It got everybody really excited. And we did, I think we made, I think we made $90,000 or $95,000 just in the Fund a Cure part of the event. Yeah. And that was just asking for donations.
Yeah, that was incredible. And it also just generated, it just created this incredible spirit in the room.
Right. It's an amazing community feeling. Everybody's participating. Everybody's really wanting to fund the research, to make find a cure, and they're all on. It's a really great feeling in the room. Yeah, you're right. It was a great year this year. It was an amazing audience. So these are some of my volunteers, mainly my family in the top one. As we take all these boxes, I load all the boxes here at home. I label every single item that goes to the auction and box them all up and have them all ordered so that when the swim team comes the next morning, they know exactly where to take those boxes to. You can see the cases of champagne. All those things are then put out and then organized with the bid cards, the descriptions. You have to make sure you have some signage that just shows that one of the auctions closed at 6:50. We code every year. Everything's coded by color and time so that nobody can get confused as to which auction is closing when. It's either the pink one, it's this room, whatever. And you try to have everything really labeled. And then at the end of our events, some people say it's silly, but we don't really pay any money for this part of it. My audience likes to dance. And so at the end after the auction's all over, we put on music and people dance and have a great time. And you can see in the background there where it says thank you. we have a scrolling of all the people that have donated. Their names just are scrolling across there all night long saying thank you. So that's another thing we've added. So there you go. Any other questions?
I just wanted to mention during the live auction, you had two big screens, so they projected the item and the information about it. So it made it very easy for people to follow. And you had a DJ who was providing sound effects. That was really fun.
Yeah, we asked him to do it because it was our 10th one. We tried to do some more new things, so I hired the DJ to come, and he's a great guy. So yeah, he made it fun too.
And then you had an MC, so you had the auctioneer who's already very lively and entertaining, and you had a friend of Rick's who was the MC who was also quite funny. They were like, there were these two comics up there.
Yeah.
Talking about the items and teasing the audience, and it made it very entertaining. So are there any questions for Terry?
Just
Terry,
one. You said you made $196,000 this year. Is that net?
Yes.
So it was close to $250,000 gross. That's amazing.
Well, we've made, in the 10 years, we've made about $2.5 million for research.
And thank you for that.
Exactly. That was my next thing was thank you very much.
And the majority of all that money's come through these auctions that we've done.
Terry, do you have or have you thought about kind of creating a host committee or planning committee so all of it doesn't fall on you as much, or to kind of spread some of the work out, or do you feel like that you could lose control if you do too much of that, or how have you thought about that?
Well, I don't know what I thought would happen when I started these things. Maybe the idea was somebody else would eventually take over or something. But I think, I don't think that's going to happen. And it's really a family thing. My son has FSH. When he got diagnosed, I just had to do something. I looked at what the MDA was doing, which was hardly anything, and the research that the NIH was doing was hardly anything. And it was like, I can't just hope that something's going to happen for him. So we do this out of a passion for him and our dedication. We want something to happen. We want to get research. So I don't think anybody's going to step up to do what I'm doing unless they're a mom that has the same passion or somebody as dedicated that really wants to do this.